This is CBC Vancouver News.
If you are calling a court orange, you're only doing so because you think things are in a very bad state.
BC Children's Hospital in crisis mode, inundated with young patients as flu cases continue to rise. And
we are for sure getting short at about 25%, so that's about 250 turkeys.
A shortage of turkeys, farmers left with shrinking numbers as avian flu takes its toll. Plus,
we're standing up for our rights here in the Cowichan Territory.
An Indigenous contractor's fight to work on a new hospital built on Cowichan Territory, why the province denied his work permit. Good evening, I'm Lien Yeung. Thanks for joining us. An alarming sign of strain on our healthcare system, Code Orange. Yesterday, BC Children's Hospital briefly activated the emergency code, typically reserved for natural disasters and mass casualty events. As Janella Hamilton reports, it has parents and even health professionals worried about what's ahead.
It's easy for an adult to understand why you have to wait a long time. It's really tough for a kid to try and explain to them why we're there when they say they want to go home.
Chris Brandt has spent a lot of time in hospital waiting rooms. Just last week, he rushed his 4-year-old daughter to BC Children's Hospital. They waited 4 hours to see a physician.
The range of calm through desperation and panic, and you could just see it in the eyes of the other parents and some of them just trying to keep their kids calm.
On Saturday, that wait stretched even longer, at one point exceeding 10 hours. The hospital issuing a code orange. It was canceled about a half an hour later.
If you are calling a court orange, you're only doing so because you think things are in a very bad state.
In a statement to CBC News, the Provincial Health Services Authority says the code orange was not called due to a mass casualty or trauma event, but rather as a way to increase staffing resources to help manage the influx of pediatric patients who require frequent monitoring and care. Dr. Ko says in her 30-plus years as a family physician, she's never seen so many kids with respiratory illnesses at one time.
Every day we get calls of very sick children, high fever, coughing, wheezing, difficulty breathing.
Canada's top doctor tweeting this: influenza-related hospitalization rates among children 5 years and under is at its highest. Flu is on the rise, and the rate of respiratory viruses are much higher than expected.
By the time a child is so ill and needs to be hospitalized with flu, often it's too late. Flu can kill people.
Last month, BC Children's Hospital had to open an overflow unit for its emergency room. The province has a limited number of pediatric intensive care beds at BC Children's, Victoria General, and University of Northern BC hospitals.
We called around to the other hospitals. We called Richmond General, we called St. Paul's, and none of them were seeing kids. And so that put the extra strain on Children's because we simply didn't have another option of a hospital to take her to.
Putting added pressure on hospital staff and quite possibly the lives of children at risk. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
In response to the surge in flu cases among kids, BC's Ministry of Health is expected to address the issue tomorrow. Health Minister Adrian Dix, Dr. Bonnie Henry, and Immunize BC's Dr. Penny Ballum will be speaking at 11:30 a.m. Watch CBC as we cover it live on our website. And with cases of avian flu across the province continuing to rise, it might be harder to get your hands on a turkey for your holiday feast this season. As Yasmin Gandam reports, the industry says supply is down nearly a quarter.
The holiday season may look a little different this year around the dinner table. An avian flu outbreak means supply of BC turkeys is down.
We are for sure getting short at about 25%, so that's about 250 turkeys that we know right off the bat we're not getting.
Hopkotz owns and operates her family's butcher shop. The shop orders turkeys from local farms. She says a lot of orders have been taken, but there is no guarantee the birds will be on the table come the holidays.
It's still a bit of an unknown for about another week or so. So we've been communicating that with the customers that we're happy to take their order. There's a chance they might not be getting their turkey.
Out at Saanich Farms, their 50 fresh turkeys are already accounted for. With health and safety measures at an all-time high, farmers have had no choice but to adapt.
In some ways, I likened it to sort of the COVID pandemic we've lived through, where it's kind of similar. We just had to learn to be more careful and be more sanitary and just take extra protocols in how we distance from one another. It's no difference for the animals.
Poultry experts don't expect the avian influenza season to end until the summer, once migration for wild birds comes to a close, but say there is no risk to consuming what you can find.
Consumers can feel assured that you can't get avian influenza from eating poultry products. So you're totally safe eating your Christmas turkey or eggs or chicken.
Small flock poultry owners are also encouraged to prepare in case their birds become sick, with the BC government holding a virtual information session Monday to offer some tips. Since September, it's logged more than 45 cases of avian flu in the province. Despite less gobble-gobble on the dinner table, business owners remain optimistic.
And obviously you want really good food, but there's, that's, I guess, not really what it's about. So, it's just going to be another different holiday like we've had for the past few years.
If you are hoping for turkey during the holidays, though, the advice is to buy whatever you can get your hands on, even if it's frozen. Yasmin Gantam, CBC News, Pitt Meadows.
While less of a threat to our food sources, avian flu is also affecting wild birds, something a Vancouver Island Wildlife Rehabilitation Centre is seeing firsthand.
It's really upsetting to watch and see these animals suffer because of this flu. You can just tell that they're in pain and they're not right.
The rescue hospital has had to euthanize 4 dozen wild birds that were sick. They say that under normal circumstances, when the birds start migrating south, avian flu rates decrease. But that doesn't seem to be the case with this year's new variant, leaving officials concerned about bird populations in remote areas. The BC government is being criticized after costs for a new hospital in Duncan ballooned by more than 60%. The opposition says the money isn't being spent wisely, despite the province's huge budget surplus. But as Corey Bullock explains, that's not the only obstacle facing the new Cowichan District Hospital.
We will use these dollars we have to invest in the things that people need.
With good news to tell, Finance Minister Selina Robinson revealed that the province's coffers are flush. On Friday, Robinson said the budget has an operating surplus of $5.7 billion, a significant increase from what was projected earlier this year.
Our strong fiscal position means that we can continue to put people first and be responsive to the needs of British Columbians.
Liberal finance critic Peter Millibar says despite the surplus, the NDP government is not watching its spending. Millibar points to the new Cowichan District Hospital site in Duncan, where costs are soaring at a price tag of almost $1.5 billion. It's 63% higher than originally forecast.
We're not seeing private sector projects that have increased over that same time frame.
And now a labor dispute is brewing.
We're standing up for our rights here in the Cowichan territory.
John Coleman has locked the gates to the construction site and is protesting with his employees. They were working here, but he says the province denied his company a work permit because none of his workers are part of a union recognized by the BC Infrastructure Benefits.
This is our territory. We have a right to work and help build our hospital in this valley and keep it local.
An argument the Liberal opposition agrees with.
An Indigenous contracting company that cannot receive permits to work on that site, even though they are local and Indigenous and do great work. So that's a big concern.
In a statement, the Ministry of Health says it's in ongoing conversations with the Cowichan First Nation, adding, "The project is in the early stages of construction and we hope issues can be respectfully resolved and we can mitigate project delays." As for the skyrocketing costs of the project, the Finance Minister blames it on factors outside its control.
We are experiencing supply chain challenges and labor shortages in projects across the capital plan.
These workers here say they're willing to work, if they're allowed. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
Well, something other than books is flying off the shelves at 2 Metro Vancouver libraries. There's been huge demand from cardholders for carbon dioxide monitors.
They're bringing it home or to their office maybe, checking the air quality, and then they're bringing it back to know, should I be opening the window? Should I be asking for more airflow in this room if it's at a workplace?
The monitors register the amount of carbon dioxide in the air every few minutes. They measure air quality and the amount of infectious aerosols in the air. West Vancouver's Memorial Library and the North Vancouver District Public Library say that stocking non-book items that serve the public good like these is a priority for them. Animal welfare advocates here in BC are renewing their calls to the Trudeau government to ban the live export of horses overseas for human consumption.
These horses are crammed into small wooden crates, put onto the bellies of planes, shipped overseas where they're slaughtered for sushi. They are put at risk. The welfare is put at risk. We already know that there have been deaths. There have certainly been injuries.
In a petition initiated by singer Jan Arden, the Canadian Horse Defence Coalition is asking the feds to stick to a campaign promise made more than a year ago. In a statement, the government says it is in the early stages of analyzing the commitment, and in the meantime will continue to enforce regulations to make sure the animals are transported humanely. Port Alberni residents bid farewell to an iconic local eatery today. Solda's family restaurant has been open for over 50 years, and as Wamish Hamilton shows us, saying goodbye was bittersweet for the family and the community.
It's an emotional day in Port Alberni. After 53 years, a staple of the community has closed its doors. Solda's family restaurant is no more.
It's all family today. Today's all family. It's all my sister from Alberta. It's all family.
Ivo Solda's parents opened the restaurant in 1969. It quickly became a local favorite. The eatery thrived when Port Alberni was booming, when it had one of the highest per capita incomes in all of Canada. It even survived the lows through the resource economy crash and when families left.
Just the mall days and just developing a restaurant at that time. My dad, just designing it, getting it done. And over the years, with the downfall of the forestry industry and all that, it was a tough time at that time.
Ivo took over the business, but it stops here. His kids aren't interested in running the restaurant. Despite that, the family came together to keep it going in its final weeks.
The city is really expanding. We've come a long ways from the little mill town that we were used to being known for, and we have customers who are sad, but some are really happy about what's going on in Port Alberni.
It was busy here on its final day. Well-wishers stopped by to say goodbye and wish the Soldas congratulations on a well-earned retirement.
I'd like to thank all the customers over the years. That's the best part of the job. Otherwise, too much work.
Customers say the restaurant meant as much to them as it did to the family.
I feel pretty good about it. I've been coming to Solda's for over 50 years. It's been a real part of my growing up as a kid.
To me, I'm trying not to get emotional because so many meetings we had here, and luncheon meetings, so many family gatherings here.
It's bittersweet, but Ivo feels it's the right time to close this chapter of their lives as they begin to create a new one. Wamish Hamilton, CBC News, Port Alberni.
Alberta is getting ready to make changes to its proposed Sovereignty Act after concerns were raised about cabinet powers. That story's coming up. The battle for First Nations child welfare compensation will play out this week in Ottawa. First Nations chiefs are expected to vote on a $20 billion compensation package with the federal government. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, the decision could change the fate for tens of thousands of people waiting for life-changing reparations.
First Nations child advocate Cindy Blackstock is not discouraged, even as the legal battle she started 15 years ago drags on.
This is a golden opportunity to get it right.
A chance, she says, for the Assembly of First Nations to renegotiate its $20 billion package with Ottawa for First Nations people underfunded by the on-reserve child welfare system.
There's lots of good things in that final settlement agreement, but you can't have a final settlement agreement that is supposed to be justice for victims that disentitles some victims.
AFN chiefs are expected to vote this week on two competing resolutions. One to officially support the deal, the other backed by BC chiefs to change course.
That's really essential in ensuring that we don't have to come back again for another court action.
Both the federal government and the Assembly of First Nations are appealing a recent Canadian Human Rights Tribunal decision rejecting their compensation offer.
The clarity that the review will provide will give us an indication on how to move forward in those areas.
People need to respect our work and respect First Nations work.
I'm very proud. The regional chief who led negotiations for the AFN is trying to convince chiefs to stay the course.
There's some confusion out there, and I think that we really have to bring it all together and have a fulsome discussion, on the issue.
Blackstock wasn't part of the compensation talks. Some chiefs are now trying to bring her in.
What I would say to the Government of Canada is fulfill your promise to the victims. You said you were going to compensate them 2 years ago. Nobody has seen anything.
The AFN's debate could decide the fate of the multi-billion-dollar agreement. If chiefs decide to drop their appeal, the federal government could be facing off in court with a former partner. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Alberta's government is preparing to make changes to its controversial Sovereignty Act, removing the ability for Cabinet to make changes to federal laws without any debate in the provincial legislature. But as the CBC's Rafa Bujikanian explains, the act also allows Premier Daniel Smith's government to order cities to stand up to federal laws it doesn't like.
Premier Daniel Smith's proposed Sovereignty Act is dividing people inside and outside the legislature.
It is time that we stand up for Alberta.
We need a government that's focused on helping the people, not fighting Ottawa.
These protests for and against erupted just days after the United Conservative Party introduced its signature piece of legislation.
I will never apologize for defending Albertans against federal actions harmful to our province.
Smith spent the week responding to charges the bill would give Cabinet unchecked power to defy federal laws it deems harmful to Alberta and unconstitutional.
Why should Albertans trust the MLAs to do that when that is the job of the court system in Canada?
Well, I think it's because there's certain areas where it would be very obvious if Ottawa stepped into our turf.
But over the weekend on her radio show, Smith said the bill was never supposed to give Cabinet that sweeping authority and is planning changes to make that clear.
I am absolutely open to having revisions and amendments to it because, look, you never get things 100% right all the time.
The bill's critics, though, still have questions. Under the act, the province could make cities ignore federal laws it does not like.
This is a great example of incredible overreach and tying our hands to not be able to serve our citizens.
Yes, we are opposed to somebody talking sovereignty or Sovereignty Act.
Then there are concerns it could potentially run roughshod over First Nations treaty rights.
We believe if there's anybody that has the right to do that, it is the sovereign people that entered into treaty with the Crown.
Smith's official opposition doesn't want changes, it wants the bill gone.
This bill is toxic for our reputation and for investment.
As Albertans prepare for a provincial election next year, this confrontation could last months. The federal government, meanwhile, says it's watching the debate. Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
In BC and across Canada, children's hospitals have tough decisions to make as they deal with a surge in patients with respiratory viruses. The CBC's Georgie Smith has more on how staff are being redeployed, and in some areas, additional help is being brought in.
Downtime at home for a father and son. Cash is 14 years old and requires round-the-clock care.
Little chest rub.
Calgary's Rotary Flames House provides respite care to children like Cash.
The house will be closed. They will be redeployed to the hospital indefinitely.
The hospice is closing temporarily so staff can be redeployed to Alberta Children's Hospital to deal with an unprecedented surge in respiratory illnesses.
It took me a little bit for it to sink in that this was actually happening.
Alberta Health Services says the move will create 6 beds at the hospital.
Our priority is these, responding to the needs of these acutely ill children.
It's the worst flu season in Alberta in more than a decade, and nationwide, children under 5 are the largest group being hospitalised with the flu, forcing children's hospitals across the country to make tough choices. In St John's, the Children's Hospital cancelled some routine surgeries and appointments. In Ontario, Kingston General Hospital is taking in young, very sick patients from across the province to relieve the pressure on other facilities. And in Ottawa, an extraordinary move. The Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario is asking for support from the Red Cross to assist staff dealing with a surge in young patients. That team starts next week.
What would have been inconceivable prior to the pandemic now seems almost normal, which is probably the scariest sign of all. Like, if you had asked somebody in 2019, do you ever think we're going to have to call in the Red Cross to help support a hospital in a major Canadian city?
Support for a healthcare system that needs help.
This is the situation we are in society, that we're pulling nurses away from the weakest people right now.
Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
And there's a live shot of Olympic Village in Whistler, all lit up for the holiday season, looking quite magical. Coming up after the break, I will have your full forecast. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. Stream your favorite CBC dramas or comedies 24/7 on demand on the CBC Gem app. Plus, you can live stream CBC Vancouver News. Check it out at gem.cbc.ca. And never miss a special programming series or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
Let's take a look at the weather forecast now. It's been a cool couple of days, and we are going to continue seeing those crisp conditions for a little while longer. Those are your current weather warnings and watches in through the interior, expecting Arctic outflow and wind warnings because, yes, it is cold, and you can see those cool temperatures even here on the south coast. In Abbotsford, looking at a -6, -5 in Pitt Meadows. If you're at YVR, looking at a -3, and even if you're on the island, still quite cool, -6 degrees. Across the province tomorrow, more cool temperatures. And if you're in Dease Lake, expecting a bit of snowfall, -14. If you're in Prince Rupert, though, gorgeous day ahead. 2 degrees will be your high, sunny. Prince George, you are looking at potential for some snowfall, 2 to 4 centimeters of snow, -18. Perhaps a sneak of sunshine there in Williams Lake, -17. Port Hardy looking at 3 degrees. Victoria also looking at 3. Kelowna, a -8, mostly cloudy in store. Starting your work week tomorrow with some sunshine. 2 degrees will be your afternoon high. In the morning, it will be cool, though, feeling like -9 with the wind chill factor. Rain snow mix for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Temperatures do warm up a bit, but by Friday, as temperatures cool overnight, expecting a rain snow mix once again. Got to keep those sidewalks salted. All right, that's it for us. That is your late news for this Sunday. Thank you for watching. For news at any hour, you can always go to our website, cbc.ca/BC. I'll be back here next week. Have a good night.